So my name is Pooty. I have been working at Adobe for the past 1 year as a mobile SDK engineer. Prior to that, I was pursuing my master's in computer science at University of Southern California. So quite new to the workforce. So today I'm going to be talking about how to access SQLite database and web APIs from your Android application. So I think in the past classes, you've seen what databases are, what SQL and NoSQL database is, and what JSON is, and so on. So we're going to use all those concepts along with a few more concepts that I've learned from the earlier classes in this class. So the prerequisites for this class is definitely have Android Studio installed, and you can download the starter code from this link. And then a few other concepts we'll use from your previous class is recycler view and adapters and threading in general, specifically how to use async tasks. So let's start. So for the SQLite part, we're going to be using a sample application, which is called the Words Sample app. So I'll tell you what the sample app does and everything going uh, forward. So Android has SQL APIs, native APIs that you can use to access the SQLite database. But there are many disadvantages with using that. The first major disadvantage being there is no compile time verification of SQL queries. So what I mean by that is, say I write incorrect SQL query. So my app will compile, but when I try to run my app and execute that query, my app crashes. So at compile time, there's no way I can tell if my query is right or not right. And the second disadvantage is there's a lot of boilerplate code that you have to write, and it's quite complex. So Android has provided a library called Room, which is an abstraction layer over SQLite, and it is a part of Android Jetpack. So Android Jetpack has a bunch of libraries which make it easy and which provide functionalities for many simple operations. So some of the benefits of Room is like there's compile time verification of SQL queries. So when I compile my app, if I have an incorrect query written, so I'll get to know I'll get an error right at compile time. And it's very easy to write. You don't have to write a lot of code. And there's a concept of annotations which makes it very easy and very succinct to write code, which we look at this going forward. So I spoke about Android Jetpack. So Android Jetpack has a bunch of libraries to do common tasks such as lifecycle management and data persistence. So for this particular class, we'll be using a few of those components from the Android Jetpack, which are called the Android architecture components. So what we're going to be using is a view model, which is a UI controller, live data, which is used to hold data that goes in the UI, repository, and room database. So we'll go through each of these using our sample app, which is the Room Word sample app. So the sample app is very simple. So you have a list which is built using recycler view, which displays all the words. And these words are stored in a Room database. And then there is a plus button on the screen. I'll show you the app later. So there's a plus button on the screen. When you click on it, you can add new words, and these words get displayed back on the screen. So pretty simple. But we're going to be using a few concepts here. So the first one is the Room database in which we're going to be storing our words. And then we're going to be using this word repository and then use a word view model to uh, connect the repository and my activity, which is going to be showing my actual list of words. So any questions so far? Anything you guys want to ask? Okay, I'll go forward, assuming there are no questions. So let's first start with our first component, which is Room. So there are three components in Room. So the first component is the entity, which is nothing but tables in your database. So since we are dealing with words, so it makes sense to have a table which has words. The second component is data access object, which is an annotated class where you specify all your SQL queries and all the operations that you want to do on your database. And the third component is, of course, your database, which serves as the access point for your app's persisted data. So let's start building each of these. So we'll start with our entity, which is our word table. So, I mentioned that there is something called annotations that we use when we are creating components in Room. So these annotations help identify how each of these parts of the class relates to the entry in the database. So I've opened up the sample app that I've shared, and I'll go through each and every class and try to go through each and every line to tell you what it means. So we first have this class word, which is our entity. It represents a table in our database. And then to specify the name of the table, which is my word table, I use this table name. So simply writing at entity and in braces putting table name is equal to your name of the table at the top of your class declaration. That is how you say that this class is an entity or a table in my database. Now I have my constructor for this class, which accepts a non-null value, non-null string value called word. And then I'm setting my variable, which is the string word, to whatever is passed in the constructor. And then I also have a getter method, which will get this word that is saved. Now there are three more annotations here. So we look at what those are. At primary key is a primary key for the table. So you might remember from your previous class, every row in your table should have a unique primary key so that you can identify that row by that primary key. So at primary key, putting at primary key above any variable, it indicates that it's the primary key of that table. And since you can't have null values as primary key, we are annotating it with not at non-null, indicating that this value cannot be null. And at column info is used to specify what name of the column is in the table if you want the name to be different from what is the name of the variable. So say I don't want my column to be named mWord. Instead, I want my column to be named word. So I do at column info and I give my name equal to the name of the column. So is this clear? Are there any questions with this format? So there are a lot more annotations. You can look it up later. There are a lot more annotations to do many more things. You can look it up later. So let me proceed to the next step, which is creating my data access object. So like I said, data access object has one or more methods which interacts with your app's database. So you can write queries to do various tasks. Now let's look at this word database object, database access object. So all DAOs should be an interface or an abstract class. So what does this mean? It will only have a method definition. There will be no declaration. You will not write what the method will do. So each DAO should be either an interface or an abstract class. And at the top of this class, you will put this annotation at DAO to indicate that this is a data access object. Now in this data access object, so what are the functions that we are doing in with our database? So we want to insert a word in the database, for which I have written this function void insert, which takes in the word that needs to be inserted in the database. And the other one is, the other operation I want to do is I want to get all the words in the database and I want to display it in the list. So I have this method get alphabetized words, which will get all the words in alphabetical order. Now we'll see what these annotations are now. So to perform simple operations like insert, update, and delete, there are built-in annotations like at insert, at update, at delete. So if you just put at insert, void insert, word, this Room will handle all the complexities, all the operations needed to insert this word into your database. Now, what is this on conflict strategy? So here we have designed our database so that each word itself is its own primary key. So say we are inserting two same words into the database. Now the primary key is conflict. So in this case, this conflict strategy is used. So here my conflict strategy is ignore. So if I already have a word, say ABC in my database, and I try to insert ABC again, so the second ABC word which I'm inserting gets ignored. Now for more complex queries, we have this at query annotation. So I can put this at query annotation, and in the braces inside quotes, I can put in any SQL query. This can range from simple select or delete or update to including joins and so on. Now, let's look at one more concept, which is live data. So this method here is returning a live data. So what is this live data? So live data, when you use live data as your return type, so Room generates all the necessary code to update live data when database is updated. So you can think of live data as always holding your latest list of words. If I delete a word in my database, the word gets deleted from this live data, and if I add a word, that new word appears in this list of words. You don't have to additionally do any operations to update live data. So that's the advantage of using live data. And there's also more advantages, which this is a life cycle aware component. So every time, like I said, when my list of words changes, this uh, live data also changes. So any questions with the data access object, any of the lines or any code that we've written that you guys did not understand? Okay, so I'll move forward to the next step, which is creating the room database. So let's look at this class first. So there's a lot of things here. So we'll go over it one by one. So first of all, my room database needs to extend this room database class, and then you need to annotate it with at database to tell that this class represents my database. And then I need to tell what are the tables in this database. So with entities equal to, I've put my word dot class, which is my table. And then this is the database version. And then you can Google what export schema is. It's not so important. So what is all this code that I've written here? So that is to create a singleton class. So what is a singleton class? So a singleton class has only one instance. So you can only create one object of a singleton class. Why are we making this database a singleton class? So if we have multiple instances of our database, we can update these multiple instances from different paths that run concurrently in our app. So there can be read write errors. So to prevent this, we are making our database a singleton class. Now, like I said, so say I have usually how do I create an object in Java? So I have word, say example equal to new word. So every time I do this new word, there is a new object that is created. Whereas with singleton classes, this doesn't happen. There's only one object of the class that can be created. So how do we create a singleton class? So for this, we're going to be using a few concepts. The first one is a static variable. So a static variable is a property that is common to all objects. It is not it is shared by all objects, and it is not unique to each object that is created from the class. Next is a static method. So the static method belongs to the class instead of each individual object. It can access these static variables, and the most important part is you don't have to create an instance of a class to access a static method. So I don't have to create a new word. I don't have to do this new word each time and then use this new word dot create insert or new word dot delete. I don't have to do that. I can directly call word dot insert whatever method. Now the third concept we're using is a synchronized block. So synchronized block allows only one thread to execute at a given time. given point of time. This is to make the singleton class thread safe. So let's see how we use this component to make our room database singleton. So first, I have created this static instance of the word room database. So static, we have made the static, which means this is shared by all objects of the class. There's only one copy of this. The next thing we have done is we've made the constructor of this word room database class static. So we don't have to do this. We don't have to do new like word room database db is equal to new word room database. I don't have to do this. So yeah, I don't have to do this. Instead, and this won't even be allowed. Instead, I'll only have one instance of this class, and I can directly access whatever methods of this class and instances of this class by just doing this. Like say here I have one method which is word DAO, so I'll just do word room database dot word DAO. So this is how I access it. So now I'm ensuring that there is only one instance of the class. Now what do we do inside this constructor? So if I already have an instance, so instance is not equal to null, I just return the instance. If the instance is null, it's not created before. Now we are creating one synchronized block here. Why are we doing this? Because we can have multiple threads calling this constructor at the same time in the app. So we're creating a synchronized block, and only one thread at a time will enter the synchronized block. And then we're checking again if this instance is created between one thread entering this, if some other thread has created an instance. If we already have an instance, we return it. If we don't have, we're going to create a new database like so, and then we're going to return that instance. So this is how the word room database is created, and it's a singleton class. So any questions so far? This is a very commonly used concept, and singleton it's a very commonly used concept in object-oriented programming. Okay, so I'm gonna go forward. I am not able to see the chat, so if there are any questions, either you guys can unmute or Anna, you can let me know. So let's go to the next steps here, which is creating my word repository and my word view model. So what's a repository? So a repository is it abstracts the access to multiple data sources. So what do I mean by that? Say tomorrow I don't want to show words from this database. I want to get words using an API from the internet. Like say I want to get words from Wikipedia using Wikipedia's API, and I want to show that. So this word repository acts as it abstracts what my data source is. So my app doesn't know if my words are coming from a database or if they're coming from an API. And this is very easy to swap out as well. I can just swap this room database and instead put in an API. So that's what the repository does. So let's look at what this word repository class looks like. So since we're using our room database here, so in the constructor we do word room database dot get database. So this is how I said you access a static class. Now using this database, I'm going to get the word DAO, and using the word DAO, I'm going to get all the alphabetized words, and I'm saving this in the live data. Now I am going to write one getter to get all this words list, and the other operation is inserting a word. So all database operations are long running processes. So you should never perform long running processes on the UI thread, because it will cause your app to crash. It will block the UI thread, it will cause your app to crash. So any long running process like output access, networking calls, database access, you should never write them in the main thread. So let's run this insert in a background thread. So to run it in a background thread, we're going to use async task. Again, this is a concept that you have learned in your previous class. So we are going to, in the background, we are going to use our DAO and insert the word that we received. So this is about the word repository. Next, let's look at our view model. So what is a view model? So view model provides data to the UI and it survives configuration changes. So what does surviving configuration changes mean? Say I have my app in landscape mode and then I rotate my phone and now my app is in portrait mode. So what happens is each activity that is there on the screen is destroyed and it's recreated. So this is called a configuration change. Now, what happens if I don't use a view model? So like say my word repository is directly talking to my activity. So in this case, what happens is when I rotate my screen, since my activity is destroyed, say I started accessing the database when my app was in landscape mode, then I rotated it, and now I got a result back, and I'm trying to update, but my activity is not there anymore because it's already destroyed because my app is recreated. So, so instead, we're going to use a view model which is going to persist data despite these configuration changes. So this also aims for separation of concerns. So my activity and fragment is only responsible for drawing the data to the screen. It doesn't have any idea about what data it is drawing. Whereas my view model is responsible for holding and processing all the data that needs to be shown to the UI. Now, since we said that the view model needs to persist configuration changes, we should never pass a context into the view model. So let's look at how to write a view model. So this is my view model class, which extends the Android view model. And here we have our constructor. So instead of passing the context, we have this application. So we are not passing our activity context anywhere here in this class if you see. Instead, we're passing the application context. Now I'm getting a hold on my word repository. I'm creating a new word repository and I'm getting all the words. So, and then I also have a getter to get all these words that I have. And then of course the other function that we have is insert. So where we're going to call the repository dot insert. So this is all the background that we have done now to create our entity, create what operations are going to be performed on that entity, create a database which is going to hold the entity, and then create a repository which provides a layer of abstraction over the database, and then finally our view model which is going to interact with the UI. So any questions so far? Okay, so I'll go ahead now. The fun part, let's create the UI. So like I said, in the UI we are going to be creating a list which will display all the words and then one add button which we can use to add words. So let's look at this activity class, main activity, which has the UI. So here I have all the usual code, toolbar and all that. And now we come to the meat of it, which is our recycler view, which is going to be the list which is going to show all our words. To provide data to this recycler view to show what the actual words are in this list, we're using this word list adapter. So let's look at how this word list adapter looks. So it extends recycler view.adapter, and then there is a view holder which is holds and manages the view for each single item. Then we have all the other methods needed to show in a recycler view. So and then so our each of our list items basically has a text view, and it has one option menu which has a delete button in it. So yeah, and then we have this click listener for the delete button, and then we have this our main method, which is this set words method, which is what we use to provide what list of words needs to be displayed in the recycler view. So let me know if any of you want me to go over any part in the recycler view. I'm not explaining this in a whole bunch of detail because you've learned it in a previous class. But you have any questions about any part of this class that you don't understand, please do let me know. So let's go back to the main activity. Now here we are creating a view model. Now to create a view model, we're using something called a view model provider. So a view model provider helps to associate a view model with your UI. So what it does is, if my app is first created, so my app is first started, it creates a new view model. If my activity gets destroyed, it persists the view model, and when my activity gets recreated, it will return back the persisted view model. Now let's go to the next part here. So what are we doing here? So what we're doing here is, to display the current contents of the database, we're going to add an observer that observes the live data. Now, what is an observer? So let's look at the literal meaning of observer. So say I am sitting on a park bench and I'm observing. I see everything that is happening around me, all changes that are happening around me. So observer pattern is the same thing. So it observes the changes that are happening to some whatever it is attached to, and it tells the person observing that there is a change. So in this case, whenever my live data changes, it's going to tell my view model that my live data has changed. So let's see what's happening here. So we are doing, so my view model is observing changes on my live data. So every time there's a change in the live data, this on change method gets called. So like say I add a word, this on change method gets called. When I delete a word, this on change method calls. So basically every time the live data changes, my observer will tell this view model that this live data has changed. Now when the data changes, obviously we have to update the list. So we're going to go to this adapter and then we're going to set the new word list. Now finally let's look at the other code. So like I said, we have a button to add. So this is that button. And then when we click on that button, we're showing an alert dialog where you can enter the word. When you enter the word, I am going to insert it. So I'm going to use this view model.insert to insert the word in the database. Now you can notice here that nowhere have I written code to, once I've inserted this word, I've not written code to fetch the words again. I'm not done view model dot get all words again. So I'm not done view model dot get all words here and updated the list, because that is handled by the observer here. So now let's run the app and see if this works. So app launched and I have this list which doesn't have any words in it, so it's not showing anything. Now I'll click this button and I'll insert a word. So great, we have this word here. Let's insert another word. Okay, now let's see if our conflict strategy works. So I'll try to insert word 2 again. Okay, it didn't insert it, so that works. So all our word insertion is working perfectly fine. Now I said there is a delete functionality here, which I've not implemented. So this is the part where you need to implement the delete functionality. So does anybody want to tell me how to do that, like what to change? So like let's see what we don't have to change first. So we definitely don't have to change our entity. We don't have to add any new columns to delete a word. We just need to delete an entry from this table. So deletion is a new operation. So we would have to do that in our data access object, because all our operations on our entity is done here. So we already have insert. So can anybody tell me how I can do delete? Like how do I add another operation to delete here? Anyone? So I'll give a hint. So the annotations that we have to use is at delete. So this is the built-in annotation for deletion. Okay, actually let me complete it. I guess like you guys still might be confused. So let me do void delete word. So I need the word which needs to be deleted. So I'll take that as an argument. I've written my delete function now, which has this delete annotation. So room is going to handle deleting the word, and which word do I delete? That's taken as an input parameter here. Now, which is the next class we created, which is that was the word repository. So obviously here I need to put in another method to delete. And again, like we did with insert, delete is also a database operation. It's a long running operation. So you should do it in an async task. So let's do that. Public void delete, and we need a word that needs to be deleted, and we'll create a new delete async task, and we're passing the word to this. We're passing the DAO to this, and we're passing the word to the execute method. Now let's just duplicate this async task and change a few things. So we'll rename this to the delete async task, change the constructor, and here we're using DAO.delete. Okay. Next class, we don't have to change the database. Database remains as is, but we do need to expose this delete function in the word view model so that our activity can use that. So let's do that. So we have public void delete word which needs to be deleted, and then call our repository method. So yep. Now last step, finally delete the word. So we'll call our view model dot delete and the word, and let's run this. So this delete button is being called from here. So when in my list item I go to the button option and I click on the delete, I'm going to call this delete click listener. So the app is run, and let's see if we can delete a word. Yes, great, that works. So let's try again. Let's see if we can delete this. Yes, delete works perfectly fine. So any questions so far with any of these concepts? Okay, I'll go ahead. So the next topic that we're going to be covering are web APIs. So when I was talking about repository, I mentioned that we could be getting our words from either a database or a web service. So what is a web API or a web service? So it is application programming. API stands for application programming interface that allows the developer to interact with external services. So let's take an example. Say I want to log into Facebook. So Facebook is going to give me an API, which is a way for me to connect to talk to Facebook, for my app to talk to Facebook and tell Facebook, hey, see, this is my email ID and my login, and then please tell me if these credentials are right, and if I can let this person log into Facebook. So it's an interface for these two entities, which is one is my app and the other is Facebook, to communicate with each other. So that's almost every app there is out there uses APIs. So this app sends out a request, and my web server will check the contents in this request and then respond back with whatever was requested by the app. So there are different kinds of web services. So I mean, each server can configure and expect the way we talk to be different. So the first kind of web service is SOAP, which uses XML to transfer data. So if you guys might be familiar with XML. So in all of our layout files, we use XML language. So if you see the code, so yeah, we use XML here. So SOAP uses XML. XML RPC is another protocol which is very similar to SOAP, but instead of using a proprietary XML format, it uses a specific XML format. JSON RPC is very similar to XML RPC, but instead of using XML, it uses JSON. All these three are relatively less used, but the majority of the web services right now are REST APIs. So unlike the other three, REST is not a protocol. It is more a set of principles, a set of architectural principles that web services use when they're creating their APIs. So you can look up what these architectural principles are. They are all the way from like cashless and what languages used to transfer the data, and what is the ease of data transfer, and so on. So you can look this up later. What are the architectural principles that are enforced by REST? Let's see how a REST API works though. So REST uses HTTP protocol to communicate. So you might have heard of HTTP. So like say here I have, like say google.com. So if I just click on this, so you can see this is HTTPS and HTTP. So this is the protocol that is being used by REST. HTTPS stands is a secure version of HTTP. Now each REST API has 4 parts. So the first part is my endpoint. So it's basically who am I talking to? Is it Google? Is it Facebook? Is it GitHub? So in this case, I'm talking to Google and this is my endpoint. The second part is method. So this refers to the HTTP method. So in database, we have creating, reading, creating, inserting into a database, reading from a database, updating database, and then deletion. So similarly, we have post, which is equivalent to create, get, which is equivalent to reading, put, which is update, and delete is deletion. The third component is headers. So headers provide information which is needed by both the client and the server. Like say, uh, I want to use this login method for Facebook. I need to authenticate myself. I need to tell Facebook that I am authorized to call your login API. So I can pass that in the header. There's also other information that is passed about the content body. Like for example, in my body, in my request body, I'm going to send the information in JSON format. So I can specify that with this content type application JSON. And then finally is the body, which contains some information like the server, which the server wants. Like for example, in my login case, I can send my email ID and password in the body. So this is how REST APIs work. Now, like I said, I mean, database operations, calling REST APIs, all these are long running operations. So they should never be done on the UI thread and block the UI thread. Otherwise, your app will crash. So you should always do this in the background thread. Now, when we were seeing a sample app, so one way we perform background operations was using async task. So, but there are problems. Why can't we call an API from async task? So there are a lot of problems. So the first problem is again configuration changes. So when I rotate a screen, my activity gets destroyed and recreated. So my async task will be updating UI elements that don't exist anymore. Okay, say I use a view model to solve this. The other complication is actually it's not a it's this is a drawback that async task doesn't have caching. You would have to write caching logic. So what is caching? So say I'm accessing one API very frequently, or I'm accessing some data from the database very frequently, and my database has not, or my API result has not changed. So instead of doing this long running task of every time going and fetching from the API, I'm instead going to store those results in a cache. So cache retrieval is much faster than actually going and reading from the database. So first I'm going to go check in my cache if the data exists. If that data exists, I'm just going to fetch it from the cache. If it doesn't, or if the data is updated, I'm going to get it from the database. Now, the third drawback is canceling requests with async tasks. It does ensure that the post execute method is not called, but it doesn't ensure that the request is not made every time. The fourth drawback is there are limits on how many parallel tasks you can run with async tasks. So say I want to call a lot of APIs in parallel, that there is a limit on that using async task. And generally, if you just check how to actually, let me Google and show you how much Android networking work calls using async task. There's a lot of boilerplate code that's there using async task. So like you can see here, so I have this async task and then do in background. I'm using this HTTP client to, and I'm putting my URL here, and then I'm calling my API. This is a lot of boilerplate code, and there is a lot of things that you need to handle on your own, like retry logic. Like say if my API fails first one time, I have to retry and call it again. And then say there is caching, which you have to handle on your own. And say for images are extremely large data that is returned, so you have to handle that. So sometimes you also get streaming data or batch data. So you get part of data once and then you get part of the data again. So you have to stitch that data together. So you'll have to handle all these cases together. Instead, to simplify this, there are a lot of libraries that are developed to make network calls in Android. So I've mentioned a few here. So there's you can see, you can look up any of these and use any of these in your apps, and each of them, the implementation is different. So I have not gone into details of any particular one, but you can look at them and they're pretty easy and they provide a lot of functionality. So with this, I come to the end of this class.